Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversation with Calvin. We the species. I'm speaking fast because there's a lot to do. There are interviews in our interviews, but this is an interview for so many reasons with Christina Eliopoulos and Joe Cortese. Christina, has written and produced this most amazing story. It's called Here's Yianni. And I could talk for an hour. They're going to shoot me if I do. But it's so important. The storyline of this is so important. Their backgrounds were all Jersey, hey, Newark, Patterson, Asbury Park. But it's so the subject matter we're going to talk all about this is so important. Dementia is so important because it's all over our world, and it's going to be even more all over our world. It's such it really is an amazing movie, an amazing cast. We didn't even talk about that. So I'm just thrilled to do this because of the commonality and the energy and the stuff that I feel. I'm done with my little Johnny Carson monologue. All right, no funny, no jokes stuff, but Joe, Christina, just a couple of words and a little intro, and then we'll kind of get into this. Take it away.
Well,
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah,
first of all, the name is pronounced Cortese. That's the
crazy.
Italian uh, pronunciation, and it's funny the way you pronounce it was the way I used to pronounce it until I did my first film in Italy in the early '80s. Anyway, look, you're right. We got Jersey Strong on the phone right now. I mean, on the podcast. It's great. And I'm proud of this movie we made, which you said, yeah, it is a very important subject matter, dementia, but it's more than just a movie about dementia. It's really a story about a man based on a true story of my director's father who contacts uh, dementia. And in his dementia, he imagines himself as a late night TV talk show host, uh, a la Carson, hence the title Here's Yianni. But it's more than that because it's about that. But what it's really, the core of it is really about how two married people and how she cares for him and what life is really about, which is love. And it's a beautiful love story. And that's the part that most, after watching it and sitting in an editing room and not knowing what we had, and then seeing it in an audience more than a few times and seeing the reaction and the way that it touched people, it really made me realize what this movie really was about. On its deepest part, it's really a beautiful love story and how it affects the people around the person with the disease of dementia or Alzheimer's, whatever it is, which is such a prevalent disease in the world today. And it's made me very proud to be part of this. I mean, I've made a lot of movies, and there's all different forms of entertainment, but this is on a different level. I've really come to accept everything I'm hearing and believe that it's a very special piece and that can help people, entertain people, and really get the message out there of not only about this terrible disease that is affecting, I don't know what they say it affects one out of every four or five people in some way, but about what the deeper message is. And the deeper message is that life is about love and not too much more after that. And that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Hey, Christina.
So I'm Christina Eliopoulos. I am the writer-director of Here's Yianni, and my unbelievable star and actor and colleague Joe told you a little bit about The story, it is based on the life of my mom and dad. And like all art, it starts from a place. It started from a place of discovery, frustration, pain, grief, because when your loved one is experiencing something like this, you really don't know how to react. There is no playbook for this. Even you might think you know how you will react, you don't. So I made this film, and it's been the honor of my life to work with Joe and these extraordinary actors and producers and all the amazing crew people in New Jersey who helped us make this film. It's been the honor of my life. And Joe mentioned love, and this is, of course, about an enduring love. The model for me as a daughter was my mother, who showed me that as a human, you are allowed to experience frustration and distress and anger. You can get hopeless at times, but there really is only one thing that will get you through, and that is love. And the amazing thing about Mom is that Mom found, even though Dad was unwell, she found a million different ways to show him love.
Wow.
And as I mentioned, sometimes it was a very profound thing, and sometimes it was a silly thing, but everything that she did, I think, added something to his heart, added something to his life. That's what I can say. There's so much more to say about Mom, but that's what I can tell you right now.
Wow. It's funny, it's not funny, but we're all Jersey people, and here's Yianni. I always love to show the movie poster. That's made around your hometown, Asbury Park. And so how did it feel? It's got to be a really special experience to come home and do a film like this in your hometown.
It was pretty unbelievable because Joe and Julia Ormond, who plays Lucia, plays Mom, the wife. These two fabulous actors were everywhere that Mom and Dad had been. They walked the boardwalk the way Mommy and Daddy did. They went to the same church that Mommy and Daddy did. That's the ocean that they used to gaze upon. This is the bridge where they used to take their strolls. Here's the restaurant where not only Daddy worked, but I worked too. And we actually filmed a really beautiful sequence in there. Here's the convention hall where we would skateboard and have fun. And it in some ways, Julia and Joe were kind of retracing some of these steps.
Mhm.
It was also pretty incredible to be driving down the street, and the little neighbors that knew Mom and Dad were so happy that I was telling this story. I could cross the street, and tell Mrs. Kelso, I'm like, Mrs. Kelso, just, oh, I heard you're making the movie. That's fantastic. It was kind of a head trip, actually, and everyone was encouraging and just so much fun.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was very interesting for me also because, like I said, I was brought up in Patterson, but every single summer, and still to this day, my family would go down to, summer vacation. We had a summer place, Point Pleasant. And now my brothers and sisters all live in they have houses up north, but they all have summer homes in Mantolokin, Point Pleasant, Seaside. And I carried the tradition on. And my son, who was born in California, he goes to the Jersey Shore every single summer. I don't believe we've ever missed one summer.
Mhm.
So he has a real affection for the Jersey Shore, and I think it's look. I lived in Manhattan for many years. I would go to the Hamptons on the weekend. I've heard other vacationing spots that people on the East Coast, whether it's Maryland or wherever it is, Rhode Island, but there's nothing quite like the Broadwalk in Jersey. There's nothing like the pizza in Jersey. There's nothing like the Jersey Shore. It's just, I don't know. Maybe you have to be from Jersey to appreciate it as much as I do, but I don't have to tell you how many, between the great celebrities and rock stars that come from the Jersey Shore. It's just a very special place. Let's put it this way. It's as cool as you can get.
It really is. And
It's it's très cool. It's
yeah,
just very, very cool.
and it's
And
going to
I'm
get
proud of that.
cooler.
Huh?
It's going to get cooler for
It's already been cooler.
It's cool. I sometimes contribute to a new magazine called Dining Out New Jersey Shore Edition, and I contribute to that. And of course, the publisher is a dear friend of mine, Tara Jean McDonald Bonanno, and I'm writing an essay for them that New Jersey has finally won its independence from New York and Philly.
Exactly. Exactly.
Stand alone in everything.
It used to have a stigma, and I lived in New York City for many years. It would be like, where are you from? And if you were from Jersey and you're in California, somebody said, where were you from? Years ago, you would say, I'm from New York, when you were really from New Jersey. You know what I mean? It was
Right.
like, it went from being not cool to very cool.
Yep.
And there's a lot of reasons for that.
There's a lot of reasons. We'll talk maybe
Yeah.
at the end. We'll talk about that. So, Christina, if you can tell us a little bit about the cinematic style and the structure of this film, because it's a little bit different, and how it relates to the themes of your story.
Love that question. This is, in some ways, a very, very traditional story. And it follows kind of a traditional path. We meet two people. We watch them in some happy times. We see them going through challenging times. And then at the end, they're both very different. They're changed. It's in some ways a very traditional structure. What was pleasing to me about the experience of making this film and the way we were able to, and our cinematography and the visual language of the film, is that it does two things at the same time. It's very intimate and very specific to this couple. We see the details of their life. We're inside their home quite a lot, right? But we also have these escapes into fantasy and into whimsy. And that was obviously very important to our story. It's key part of the story. The challenge in making a film like this is that when you first of all, people who have dementia, they have a very different sense of space. I'm just speaking from, a scientific standpoint. They literally do not comprehend space the way someone who is well does. So a person who has dementia, space usually feels kind of oppressive. The walls seem to cave in. And in truth, especially for my dad, there was a point in his life where it was almost dangerous for us to be outside because daddy might run out into the street or he might wander off and disappear. So a lot of the film is set inside the couple's home. And it occurred to me that with the cinematography we employed, with the lenses we employed, with the way we were able to stage the film, the audience gets a sense of Yianni and Lucia, of these two characters, and they're in this space, but yet it almost seems like a stage. It's very formal. They're kind of walking within the space the way you would be on a stage. The camera doesn't move very much. In fact, the only times the camera moves really is at the beginning of the film when the Yianni character is well, and then he can sort of go through the world with us, so the camera's moving a lot. Those are some of the considerations. The palette we were very conscious of, how, again, a person who's suffering from this disease, unfortunately, his vision becomes impaired. You lose color, you lose the sense of vibrancy. So when we're able to experience Yianni's fantasies, we're in bright colors, and lots of light. So these are some of the things that we employed to really show the audience, this is how it feels. This is how it feels if you're experiencing this, and this is how it feels if you are watching your loved one experience this. And I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, the development of the character, from the first time we see him, he's in his world. He's in the place he loves. He's walking two people to the table in his diner. He couldn't be happier. He could not be happier. And then in juxtaposition, there's a scene, and I hope I'm not giving too much away, but he's on a bench outside a doctor's office with his wife. And he just looks at her and says, "How did I get like this?"
Wow.
And she says, "No one really knows."
Wow.
I happen to be, for some reason, we're cutting it in a trailer, Greek television or something, and I saw that, and it was just, as many times as I've seen the film, not that I've seen it that many times, but it just hit me really heavy. It was like a sledgehammer hitting me in the heart. She just turns to him, and he very innocently says, "How did I get like this, honey?" It's
Wow.
I don't know, just really touched by it.
Well, that's a heavy,
Yeah.
profound thing for you to say.
That was an exquisite moment between Joe and Julia, an exquisite moment, because it's heartbreaking that your loved one is going through it, right? That's heartbreaking. What really rips you up, because a lot of times people who have dementia, they don't realize they're sick,
That thing about, excuse me for 1 second, I don't mean to interrupt you, but with his dementia, which was one of the things that it wasn't difficult for me for some reason, thank God, but the transitions of having dementia, coming out of it, going back into it, and then being able to address it, which was something I feel very good about accomplishing within the characterization, right? If you know what I mean.
Yes, that was and in our collaboration, Joe and I worked on that, and the shades of that's in all wonderful performances. There are shades. The character isn't all red,
Right.
But what I wanted to say is that what's really beautiful about, for me as a director, working with these actors, being able to watch all these different shades and colors in the performance. And especially for Joe, what was really exquisite to watch is how, okay, there's the pain that the character is feeling, right? But most of the time, the Yianni character, because this is how my dad was, most of the time, the character has no idea that there's anything wrong, right? He's going along life and he feels that sort of life, he's beckoning life and commanding and performing and it's just fine. And then there's three moments in our film, three moments where the character actually, there's a moment of clarity and he realizes that something's wrong, that he realizes that he's sick. And those are the moments of unbelievable pain. And those are the moments that I'm most proud of for Joe, having worked with Joe on those moments, because that, for me, that is the heartbreaking stuff. When the person who themselves is ill finally realizes something's wrong. Yeah.
And by the way, again, I'm not an actor, but that's got to be, well, you got to dig deep to get that out, Joe. To get that out, that moment of clarity, and what's heading down the tunnel of dementia, and then there's that moment of clarity. So that's got to be a powerful bit
Well,
of.
actors, real actors have the ability to identify those moments, a person, where they can personally identify and relate to something that happens in their life. Yesterday I was on the phone doing this interview with a journalist, and she was talking about Yianni, how he was kind of sweet and he's fun and there's this childlike quality that comes in. And then what I said was, I just basically, when I act, I think too much, except when they say action. When they say action, I totally cut off my thought process and I absolutely depend on my instinct. And whatever's happening in the moment, after I've accumulated all the research and I sort of compare it to cooking Italian, I make like a big ciabatta, a big sauce, and I throw it out the window. And then whatever filters through in the moment, I follow my instinct. And one of the things that I drew on, and again, it just came up on me, was that my father, okay? So I'm playing a father. I am a father. I had a father. My father was this little Italian guy, and he was just really a sweet, sweet man. He would write poetry to my mother. And I didn't stop and get a piece of paper and make comparisons between Gus and Phil or Joe and Gus. Or I just drew on my personal experiences. And sometimes, an actor, sometimes their emotions run stronger than others, depending on what the situation is. And like I said, from the moment I read the short story, I just immediately identified with this guy. 100%. 100%. I have a feeling that if I was, to get dementia, I would probably be a lot like the guy in the movie, right? It just, it just, I don't know. It felt natural. And from that, this childlike, very sweet guy came about, which ironically, Gus apparently was a very sweet, loved man by the community, obviously by his daughter and his wife and his son and his family. But Gus was a likable guy. The footage, if you see the footage at the end of the movie, and he says, and he talks about his diner, right? I mean, it brings a tear to your eye. You can see that the guy loved what he was doing. He loved his customers. He loved life. And to me, that's a beautiful character. That's what touches me. I'd much rather see a guy like that than some of these other
Right.
characters I see in movies today that are just kind of
One dimensional.
disgusting. Yeah, one dimensional or
Yeah.
just rude, So he's a beautiful. Gus is a beautiful. Yanni, you know, same guy. You know, he's a beautiful, beautiful character. You know, and I really have to say that when I look at it and look at certain scenes, especially the scene in the bedroom, the scene outside the house, the scene on the bench, the scene at the end of the movie on the bench, Christina, is just, I, it's overwhelming. You know, there's a scene at the end of the bench, and it's him and his wife, and it's the I don't want to give the movie away, but you should see it. It's very, very realistic in a beautiful way, and that's why it's not. You know, when you say you see movies, oh, I don't want to see a movie about a guy with dementia. It's so depressing. Not this movie. Not this movie. I mean, yeah, is it depressing? Does the guy die? Yeah, we are gonna die, right? Nobody gets out alive, but there's certain ways you go. And if you're gonna go, there's nobody that went better than Yanni. You know, he goes out in a beautiful way, and I think that's really what touches the audience. That's really what people like about this movie, and the way I describe it, and then I'll shut up. Is you walk out with a tear on your eye and a smile on your face.
Nice. I like the way you said that.
Yeah, I've been practicing it for a while.
No, I like that. I agree.
No, it's true. That's the way I
down.
felt. That's really the way I felt. I
Yeah.
can only express how I feel, and that's what I think why people relate to it.
Taking a breath. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna hit you with just a quick off-topic question I borrowed from Barbara Walters. I don't mind telling you, one of my favorite journalists. Off-topic, you don't even have to answer it, but it's kind of cute. Here goes. Uh, um, Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Wow.
You go first, Christina.
Wow.
It is
Hmm.
you don't have to answer it. There's no rules here. It's just a little provocative sometimes.
Yeah, you've there's so many in my head. I'm afraid I can't.
Do they have to be alive?
It's okay. It's
I'm
okay.
afraid I can't answer.
Okay. Do they have to be living right now?
Living or dead, you know,
Can they be?
living or dead, whatever, you know.
Me, for me, it would be John Lennon.
Nice. Nice. I used to when I was getting into sales, I was in that Dakota. The man who trained me had an apartment in that. So that was my little connection. Of course, I grew up to the Beatles. If nothing's jumping out at you, Christina, we'll just move on. It's fine. This is just this is just an interlude.
Okay.
How about your answer?
Me?
Yeah.
You're asking me? Oh, well,
Yeah.
there's a bunch, but I go back to
We all know that.
I go back to
We all
biblical
know the
times.
ground. We all know the ground rules.
Yeah, I go back to
Yeah.
biblical times, and you know,
Come on, I come up with a guy. You two have to come up with someone, a guy,
Yeah.
a man, woman, and whatever it is.
But I mean, I go back to biblical times. But the other guy I'd like to spend a day was George Washington.
George Washington.
Yeah.
All right.
And I also sometimes I say Jesus because I picture myself sometimes.
Also an interesting character.
Yeah, I see myself, you know, wearing some kind of a toga, going to in a mountain valley, listening to him speak.
Yeah, I was born the same day.
Yeah, were you Christmas Day?
Christina, you got to pick one.
So the young Orson Welles.
Hmm?
I would spend a day with the young Orson Welles because I would just like to be in the presence of someone that young and so genius. And the bravery that that artist had. I would love to spend a day with Theo Orson
Great
Welles.
answer. Um, that was on the other last week on I think TCM. And I'm a big fan of The Godfather, and to me that's the best movie ever made. So when I'm conflicted, because I'm a modern guy, but he was a genius, a genius. Hey, he was a genius all the way around.
Just to spend company in that would be
Yeah,
astonishing.
great
Who's
answer.
that? You're talking about Orson Welles, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, genius.
yeah.
It's a shame what happened to him. I once sat with him at Mamaison when he was a young actor in the early
Wow.
70s, mid-70s. That was in a restaurant. I just signed a deal with Paramount, Dino De Laurentiis, and I was like 28, and I was sitting with a very famous Asian at the time named George Chasen, and in the corner was Orson Welles, right? And he was huge, and it was like the place to have lunch in 1978, 77, 78, 79. And I looked over and I saw Orson Welles, and I went, "Holy shit, that's Orson Welles." And George Chasen said to me, "Would you like to meet him?" I said, "Yeah, of course I would." I mean, I was just, trying to get into the acting studio at the time and listening to all the recordings from the Mercury Theater and blah. And so he takes me over and he introduces me to Orson Welles, and I'm talking to Orson Welles, and I'm like, in awe. And then I come up and ask one of the dumbest questions you could possibly ask as a young actor, and his answer was fabulous, and I'll tell you what it was. At the time, in the late 70s, when I was a serious New York actor, theater rat, right? You didn't do commercials, you didn't do television. That was like poo poo. You know what I mean? If you were a serious actor, it was the stage and great film director, right? That was the climate in the late 70s. But at the time, Olivier and Orson Welles were doing commercials. Olivier, I believe, was doing some kind of insurance commercial, and um, Orson was doing a commercial, a Paul Masson wine commercial, and the line was, "Never have a wine before it's time," something like that, right? So I'm sitting there talking, and I say, "So, but I got to ask you a question." It's like I'm this serious New York fucking actor guy, right? And I said, "Why? Why would you, such a great artist like yourself, do a Paul Masson wine commercial?" And he looked at me and he said, "Well, Joseph, I'm sure you're a fine young actor, and I'm sure you go far in this business. And someday, and mind you, you'll have to sing for your supper. And that's why I do the Paul Masson wine commercial."
Wow. Interesting.
I'll never forget that.
Interesting.
Pretty good story, right?
Yeah. So, Christina, of course, we're talking about Joe, and he gives a powerhouse performance in the movie, and you've had amazing performances from Julia Ormond, and I looked at the cast, Kevin Pollak. I was a big fan when he played Walter Matthau's son in the grumpy old men movies. I got a kick out of that. So, I mean, uh, uh, um, uh, the whole cast. So, what was it like, interact?
With these incredible people,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was absolute mind-blowing and an honor. And remember, these are unbelievable talents
correct.
with such a body of work. And their director here was green as grass, but yet,
But very good with the actors.
thank you, Joe. But what we found here was I came to all these magnificent artists, and I came from a real place of honesty. I said, I'm going to tell you how I really feel about these moments, and I'm going to give you everything I know about this character. Obviously, we're not doing a biography of mommy and dad. That's not what we're doing. We're doing this story. And what was really amazing is that each actor had their own incredible process, and to be able to meet me so that we could create something beautiful. So for example, Joe's the kind of actor who, if he flicks his eyes one way, he's telling you one story. If he flicks his eyes the other way, he's telling you another story. And sometimes I would just direct Joe to stare straight ahead because there was so much going on behind those eyes, Joe, Joe's the kind of actor who wants to bring it all right away. He brings it all right away. And then he rests for a little bit, and then we proceed further and again and again. Julia is the type of actress that, and by the way, for all the actors, I gave them extensive biographies of the characters. For Rosanna Arquette, for Kevin Pollak, for Julia, Ormond, for Joe, of course, extensive biographies of the characters. In some cases, I actually made playlists. This is what Rosanna might listen to. This is what, Plucia might listen to. This is what Amelia might listen to. The greatest thrill, however, is when you get to the actual scene work with these extraordinary actors. And when you're the writer-director, it's very interesting because you'll look at the scene and you'll say, oh, wow, who wrote this horrible thing? And then you realize you did. And then you work with your actor, and then even more of the truth comes out when you are working with such incredible actors. Doing the scenes, working on scenes with Joe and Julia, working on scenes with Kevin and Rosanna, an absolute thrill. And again, these are all very generous actors. So they will come to you honestly and say, this doesn't feel right. But they were also very adventurous actors. I could say, can we try this? And they always would go out on the limb for me. They always would. With actors like this, they hold the camera. What can I say? They hold the camera. There's a scene where Julia she's crushing pills in a pill crusher, and you kind of can't take your eyes off of her. It's the same with Joe. There's a little moment where Joe, as Yianni, is staring out the window. You can't take your eyes away from him. You can't. The excitement. I mean, the realism, the sort of bristling in the moment that all these actors have. That's the most exciting part of directing for me.
Well, thank you.
It's all true.
Yeah, it was, reflecting back on it and listening to Christina. It really, really a special time. There were some really special moments in that movie that I'm very proud of.
Which is it's a good segue for me to kind of like the last major question. Then I'm going to go off topic again. But so Joe, you play a character who's got a really debilitating disease. Yet you can talk about this. The film has a very hopeful and uplifting kind of message, and I think Christina, you alluded to it earlier, the four-letter word love. But Joe, can you speak to the fact that it's uplifting, and what is the impact and influence you hope this film when it's seen, people in wider audience are going to take away something, especially from your performance in the story.
Well, I will humbly say that life pretty much, when you step back and take a look about what is life really about, and it's really, for me, it's about love. Love of thy partners in life, love in humanity, just love, and that's why I say if I could spend a day with anyone, it would be John Lennon, because I recall very vividly those times in the mid 60s, whenever the Beatles came about, and that was their message. And it really rang true for me, because it's the greatest emotion there is, I think. To love, to be loved, to give love is what it's all about.
Yeah. Well said. Well
What
said.
what I really like about your question is I think our movie, I think people will come to see that you are allowed to feel distress, you're allowed to feel sadness, you're allowed to feel anger, you're allowed all these things. I think also Yianni and Plucia's story, it's really a story about devotion, like Joe says. I'm not naive enough to believe, Calvin, that with devotion you can get through anything. Well, you can get through a lot. You can get through a lot. My mother had an expression, and I actually, it's a line that is taken directly from life. And Julia Ormond's character says it, and roughly translated, it means life is bitter. Only love can make it sweet. That's what I'm hoping, that the message of the film is that, look, our film is not prescriptive. We're not telling people, you know what, you really should do this. If your loved one has this illness, you should do this. No, there's as many different solutions for families as there are individuals who have this. What worked for Daddy may not work for someone else. Yeah.
Hey, guys, I gotta jump. I got a Zoom call I've completely forgot about.
Okay, you jump. You
Okay.
jump. I'll do a wrap with Christina. Hey,
It was a pleasure speaking with you.
it was wonderful. I'll send you all the information. Meeting you in person was great.
Thank you very much. I'm 15 minutes late.
Go, run.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, you be well. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I guess it's just you and me, Calvin.
Priceless.
Yeah, he's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, just, I mean, real. This is pure Jersey and pure real. And yeah, and I love that. I thrive on that, real people, because it's so refreshing. He's refreshing. And, his body of work, when I start, taking a look at it, and the fact he was in Monsignor, I mean, and of course, he talked about his early film with Joe Pesci, but Monsignor, that was Christopher Reeve. I mean, just wonderful, just precious. So we were actually down to the last question, in you being a director and an indie filmmaker. I watch Academy Awards. Yeah, I'm really, movies are my life. And listen, Casablanca changed my whole life around. And movies are my life. I suppose if I had a chance to come around again for another run, I'd become the next John Wayne, because I'm 6'5". You can't tell, but I'm pretty tall. We may have bumped into one another. I've been to Asbury Park for the last 10 years, a ton, covering music and stuff. And of course, Tim McClune. But anyway, so I watched Academy Awards 10 days ago, almost 2 weeks ago, and it blew me away when I saw an indie film win just about everything. Best director, Jersey Boy, Sean Baker, best director and best actress and best film. And a budget 6 million. I mean, it's a lot, but it's not. And having interviewed 30 filmmakers these last 5 or 6 days, the whole institution of money and all that,
Mhm.
and the talent that I've seen just blows me away. And interacting with you, so uh, I was rejuvenated and I was innervated and excited at the prospects of maybe we are entering a brave new world of independent film. What do you have to say about that?
What do I have to say about it is that I adore I adore the whole spectrum. I'm of course a doc filmmaker, started out as a doc filmmaker. Now I'm making narrative films. And it's about the personal vision, the personal story. I feel there's nothing more exciting than having that personal vision, that personal story. Having said that, sign me up for any Avengers movie. I just wish there was, what do I wish there was? I wish there was a little more balance. That's what I wish there was. That's what I wish there was, the now more than ever, this idea, art is essential. It's not a luxury in civil society, right? And indie film is that expression of truth, that expression of personal commitment. You know, if we don't have that, then kind of our civilization, our society just kind of stops if we don't have that. So independent film, it really it cures quite a lot. It cures prejudice, it cures short-sightedness, it cures fear in some instances, it does a lot. It works a lot for us. So that's what I have to say about it.
That was well said. I love that response, and I agree with you 1,000%. Everything. As an indie author, I know the journey and I know the road, and it's a tough road, and for indie filmmakers too. And I've had such a joy interacting with you and Joe.
Thank you.
Truly,
It's been a pleasure, Kevin. It's been
really
so
a super
nice.
pleasure. This has been wonderful. It's been very, very special for me with all the connections. And of course, the whole Asbury Park thing, and I'm a Belmar and the Jersey Shore. So it truly, you really have illuminated me.
The pleasure is ours. The pleasure is ours.
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you. So, by the way, I'll officially, you can. I sit here 12 hours a day in this wonderful chair that I've worn out a set of arms for the chair, and come back anytime, anyhow. We
Thank you.
talk about film, anything. I'm here. I'm open to. I'm
Thank
open
you.
to anything, and I only wish you good things and much success at GSS. Don't leave. I'm going to stop recording, and we'll just do a 30-second wrap.
You got it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.